What is up, guys? This is the one stream that I have wanted to do for a long time, but I just have never been sure how to go about it. And that's basically nighttime. I'm not necessarily struggling to sleep. I'm honestly not trying to sleep. So I've always had the thought of before bed, sometimes you can ease into it because you have done some unwinding prior to bedtime, but other times, maybe some thoughts keep you up. Me personally, when I have to work the next day, I usually struggle to fall asleep. And it's because I get a lot of stupid insecurities. Sometimes they're valid, sometimes they aren't. As an example, even though I know I have set my alarm, I check it again because in the past I have accidentally set my alarm to PM instead of AM. And I thought, well, why did that happen when I vividly remember that I set it for the right time? One day I discovered that back when the iPhone had the scroller method to set an alarm, if you do like a revolution between the 12 hours, it automatically shifted from AM to PM and vice versa. And I thought, well, that is dumb. I cannot imagine anybody actively using that. So, anyway, so that's where my thoughts sometimes drift to. And as careful as I think that I am the night before a shift, that's when all of my issues, all of my insecurities just begin. And that ends up costing me precious sleep hours. I have gotten a whole lot better about it because in more recent times, more often than not, it has never helped me. So I feel like I can own it better. I understand my devices better that I rely on for alarms. And I don't want to be the person who has more than one alarm set. It's like, come on, man. Just how many things backing me up do I really need? So, ever since I let go of thinking that way, I have been so much happier and getting much better quality sleep. But yeah, I hate it when I'm losing sleep because sometimes I'm thinking ahead, preoccupying my mind with the job when I'm not even fucking there yet. I don't know if that happens to you guys. Maybe that is the cause of sleeplessness in a lot of us, but just know that if I have never mentioned it before or never talked about it before, yeah, I can be that person who suffers from that. But at least it's gotten much better, and I'm happy because as you get experience and do things, you're supposed to be getting better at things, right? So, anyway, really, outside of that, if there's nothing going on in my day the next day, I cannot say that my mind is occupied by much more. Sometimes, if I'm depending on my mood, if I'm feeling a little down or physically, if I have any pain and whatnot, then yeah, sometimes I think about that. Like, wow, I remember a time when I wasn't in pain. Or I remember a time when I just did not struggle with anything and my responsibilities were pretty trivial. I don't want to say that going to school between K through 12 is trivial, but I, except for reading and writing, don't really reference my experience there much. So I cannot say that I can spend my time regretting that time because maybe it did shape me more than I give it credit. But on the fly, if you were to ask me to name something that really had an impact, I would definitely say, well, my ability to read and write and perhaps speak to some extent. But yeah, school is not really something that I can say really shaped me personally, at least not presently. Maybe in the future I'll be able to look back and give it more credit like I used to some years ago that I got around to making videos of, but the more distant the time between me having gone to school, it's been it kind of like loses its value a little bit, maybe because my memory starts getting a little foggy. I don't know if that happens to any of you out there, but for me, that's what it's turning into. But yeah, other times I think about the things that are upsetting me or making me sad, and I try to let them go, especially if it's something that's out of my control. But sometimes it becomes overwhelming, especially if it's an old issue that I guess I thought that burying it would just make it be better or die off, but then it surfaces at the worst possible time. And then I realize, oh yeah, I never took care of that. Incomplete projects become a waste of time. So that's when I tell myself, okay, if it's haunting me at nighttime, it's because it needs to be addressed and it cannot be escaped. So that is something that I cannot say that I'm getting better at, but I cannot say that I'm getting worse at it. I feel like I don't let it control me quite as much, but it's one of those things that I feel like I don't know how else to really go about it, especially again when it's something that's out of my control. But at least I have been able to control how much I let it affect me. But of course, unless it gets resolved, then it will continue to be this endless cycle. And it's pretty pathetic and petty and stupid and frustrating sometimes. But again, I think that if I'm able to deal with it in the background without it shaping my identity and decisions and crippling me from doing things, then I think that's a victory. I think that's progress. And in the past, I used to be rendered absolutely useless by my moods, especially when they were the negative types of moods. So it's nice to see that we have improved there. But of course, I guess part of your experience as a living being, especially as a human, is that that type of thing is going to happen. But I'm not sure, you guys. When it comes to that, I'm not sure if some things are meant to be resolved or if some of them I'm just going to have to learn to coexist with. But yeah, I'm not sure I'll ever get around to really naming the things that I'm struggling with because I feel like it's not really appropriate to discuss it, but then again, I have discussed so many things here that I think about, well, what could possibly be off limits, you know? But anyway, we all have something that we like to keep to ourselves. So just know that when it comes to that, I am no different. But yeah, you guys, that's pretty much it. My mind at nighttime doesn't tend to wander into crazy things unless I've just watched something inspiring or listened to something that like gets your creative gears going. So yeah, you guys let me know what kind of thoughts you tend to have. But for me, when it's the sad ones, it tends to be about people who I'm having difficulties with. Like, say, someone in the family I may not be getting along with, or someone in my social circle who I'm struggling with. So it's more my sentimental side coming out. And since I'm in like privacy, then that's when I show vulnerability to my own self. But when I'm actually in public, I don't do it because I'm not a submissive person. I'm not someone who displays vulnerability like that unless the situation calls for it. Like, say, I am discussing something that I'm being completely extra, absolutely, deeply honest about. And what I mean by that is that there are layers to my honesty. Like, I will give you the information that I deem necessary for you to know if you need to resolve something. But there are other things that go even deeper. And some of those things I like to keep to myself. That's what I mean. So, depending on who you are, I may give you the whole story or just parts of it. And that's one of the things that I tend to sometimes have difficulties with, because some people, let's say I'm in school, like this happened before. I'm in school and someone is looking for information. I could open up without any issues when I was in school, because I thought, well, who's gonna want to mess with a teenager? You know, like the people who are here, the adults who surround me, they ain't trying to hurt me. They wouldn't benefit in any way from hurting a minor, right? But in places like my job, it's like depending on who's approaching me for information, I'm definitely not as open with people there. And it's not because I have issues with anybody, it's just that I'm at an age where I value the power of bonding. So if you haven't taken the time to develop that with me, then you don't have certain access, certain privileges with certain information. Unless you ask something that I know about that hinders your progress, and it's up to me to share for you to progress. Of course, I'm never going to like be an obstruction of your growth or anything like that. What I'm saying is that additional details, like more details for certain things, more flesh, more meat to certain matters. There's only so many people I let into that type of thing. You have to convince me that it's worthy for me to share this information with you. And again, it's just my antisocial side. It's the side of me that's like, I don't like to repeat myself. So if I'm going to tell you, it's because you're the adequate recipient. But if I have to keep telling the same story to one person and then another person, how about if we huddle and everybody gets the same message simultaneously? And that way, if the story gets twisted, we know that it was someone misunderstanding. Like everybody heard at the same time exactly what I said, and I am responsible for what I say, but not for what you understand. And sometimes I find that that's a problem. It's like, even though when I share information, it's consistent, someone out there is swearing that they heard it differently. And I'm over here swearing I know what I said, for I have done this many times. Why would I twist things now? The worst I'll do is tell you in the past what we did was so on and so forth. But presently that has changed. But, keep up with the times, man. So that's one of the challenges that I experience most often, communication. But, I mean, part of working in a community with people of different ages, backgrounds, stress levels. So, like, I'm very patient in that regard. But if I can avoid repeating myself and being in social settings like that, trust me, I'm going to. So sometimes that may be where my thoughts drift at night. Sometimes I'm thinking, okay, there is something difficult that I need to tell to someone, a potentially difficult matter. What is the best way for me to approach it? Even though I am confident about my abilities with socializing, the way I address people, so on and so forth, there are some things that I can be pretty timid about, especially if it's something I haven't done before. But I always happen to be on a pretty lit path to where the right words arrive at the right time, at the right setting for me to illustrate my point. So hopefully that gut guidance will never fail me. But yeah, you guys, that's pretty much it. That's all that I can think of at the moment. You guys let me know how you experience nighttime, what your thoughts are like. Are they peaceful? Are they stressed? Are you able to like flick a switch in your brain and be like, okay, it's quiet time? I wish I could do that. I feel like sometimes my creativity hits me at night at a bad time when I cannot do anything about it. But other times I do have power over it, and I'm like, I said, I'm not going to let this bother me and ruin me, and I mean it. But that takes a little bit of effort. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you soon.